That's fine.
I know there's going to be more people joining as well. And we've got Paige. Paige is going to be one of the presenters. Let's see, Paige, are you up first? Let's see.
I think I was second after somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got that Justin and Chris were going to give a quick presentation. I thought to do that first, Trupti, because they'll be quicker, and then that way it'll leave more time to ask a few questions at the end. Because Paige, it sounded like I even queued up that email with the questions that you had from the
from the survey. We didn't get too many, and that's
no, it was like 3 or 4, 5, something like that. Well, a couple of them were double questions, but yeah, I've got that. It sounds like you forwarded that back to Paige.
I did.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Paige already has it. It was
that was very helpful.
Yeah, and it wasn't a lot. I mean, I would have expected more because
hi Paige.
Yeah, and we'll
hey, everybody
introductions and stuff as well. Hey Brad, thanks for joining. Hey Nick. Hey Matt. Hey Jonathan. Hi Joanna. Joanna, we're going to be reaching out to you soon in the next couple of weeks about 44th Avenue corridor.
Cool.
We're starting to kind of think about how, getting kind of how to get a project going and kind of outlining steps and then start kind of brainstorming around what's possible. And we'll have more to share about that. Welcome, Luke. Thanks for joining. Gonna totally take you up on your offer to help us with social media and such. So don't be surprised.
Yes, eager to help. Let me know how.
Are you not driving now?
I'm not. I'm no longer driving.
Okay, good.
Let the record show for whoever's taking notes.
Yeah, I don't want to be the cause of your distraction in a driving situation.
Oh,
Yeah,
hey, Karen.
Hi, you caught me when I was trying to get up and get a glass of water.
I thought I caught you before you tried to skip and jump out of this meeting.
No, I was just trying to hop up and grab a glass of water so that I'm well hydrated during the meeting. Good to see everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
So Rod, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, do we have enough now? I mean, it's about 5 minutes after. I think we should officially start.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, welcome. And I think there'll probably be a few more people trickling in here as we get moving through. But let's start the monthly meeting for our SUNY Land Use Committee. I'm Rod Kaczynski. I am co-chairing currently with Trupti and slowly planning on taking over for her over the next couple of months. Hopefully, we've got it going pretty good this month. We've been working together and figured out like me taking over the Zoom and all of that. So I'll be in this position. So just to notify everybody that, reach out to me, and you can always still reach out to Trupti because I'm sure it'll get here to me if I need it. So welcome to the meeting. I'm just going to go through the agenda quick because I know we've got a lot of stuff and I don't want to keep people late. The first agenda item we have tonight is to approve the meeting minutes. And this was something I wanted to kind of discuss with the group. We haven't been actually taking meeting minutes because we have been recording the videos, and in a sense, those are the records, but we do need to approve the previous meeting minutes, which there aren't really official minutes. So I wanted to ask the group, and if minutes are something that we need to be taking, like notes on the meetings, or are the video recordings enough for us to vote on to approve the previous minutes?
Yeah, I think you can either remove it from the agenda, and I think this is something internally we can talk about. And I think the issue is more about continuity, about documentation, because we may go back to in person, in which case we don't have recordings anymore. But if we still had something that's transcribed and not obviously not word for word, but kind of the important issues and votes and stuff, that may be important for the continuity.
And that's what I was thinking. I kind of made a template here that maybe we just take the high level notes so that somebody, if they're interested and for approval at the next meeting, we just say, this is what the high level notes. If you want the details, go watch the video. So I guess my first official action would be to take a vote. Can I get a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes from anybody?
Well, maybe I shouldn't be motioning.
Well, since you're co-chair,
Motion
um,
from Drought.
and then a second.
I'll second.
Okay. Can everybody, I guess then the next thing is to vote. Everybody vote to approve the meeting minutes.
Or on this one, I go with something like anyone object.
Does anybody object to approving the meeting minutes? Who has watched the video or attended in person? So it looks like we've got yays across the board. So I'm going to actually just take notes on the side here so that I can record this for our next meeting. So
And I think
Perfect.
the agenda is usually a little bit more important because this is where things could come up that we weren't sure of, things need to be moved around, or, you know, last minute additions. I think the agenda approval may be a little bit more important in case.
oh, is this for this agenda,
Yeah.
not for last agenda?
It's this agenda. It's kind
Oh,
of,
okay.
this is what we have is, you know, or we want to keep.
Well, I'm sorry. So that's this vote. The next one is to review the meetings from before.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. Bear with me as I get the rhythm. Okay. So we vote. So I guess I should rephrase that again officially. Is everybody reviewed tonight's agenda and approves that? Is that the motion then? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. We're good.
Be informal about this. I think the whole point is that we leave the room for corrections, adjustments, and movement based on something could have blown
Yeah,
up
absolutely.
yesterday, and we got to go change our agenda. It's about that.
Yeah, and I'm a pretty informal person, so all this formality is kind of not really my wheelhouse. So,
Good.
Okay, so the next section is our public comments. Does anybody here have anything they'd like to bring up with the land use committee? Bring to our attention something in the neighborhood they would like to talk about or discuss?
This is definitely an important one. We want to have an opportunity and time for people to bring things to us that we're not aware of, or things that we need to act on or do something about. So
I do have a hazard at the corner of 47th and Jason. The light pole that is on Interstate Roofing's property. I don't know how long ago that got hit, but that area doesn't drain correctly. And because of that, it just creates a gigantic ice rink. And so we just need to get with the city and county of Denver to lay some asphalt to create a channel to go to the storm sewer drain out of 47th on Jason Street. It's about halfway down the road of Interstate Roofing's property, but it's a huge mess over there. I've been over there recently, and it's a huge hazard. So
Just a quick
just bringing
note.
that up.
Have you guys, one thing, when you ever see something like that you think should be addressed by the city, highly recommend putting that in through 311 or and if
Okay.
311,
They'll get it to the right department pretty quick.
Yeah.
I had a abandoned car in front of my house, and my neighbor and I 311'd it, and it was once it got to the sheriff's department, they were off to it was gone.
311 is the way to go. And if you call and ask anyone, that is how they want to
Okay.
triage
Yeah.
all those kinds
Yeah.
of things.
I'll take care of it because I've been talking with Ben, who works for Interstate Roofing, and we're trying to resolve that problem. And then the homeless camp to the north of 47th on Jason, I don't think that will get resolved until we start having cars move from the west property over to my property.
I'll just tell you, it's been my experience. If there's a health, safety, or welfare issue involved,
Correct.
it gets put to the top of the pile pretty quick. And
That's
that sounds
also
like that falls
311.
into that category.
Yeah,
That's
all
also
of what you
311.
just said is definitely 311 worthy. There may be different things that go to different places. But yeah.
Yeah.
And
I've talked to the homeless officer, and it's just seems like it's getting thrown over the fence, but
You know,
I'll get it resolved.
I will share something with you, and this was a very interesting thing, and I hadn't thought of it, but I went to a Dottie community something, community champion something, and I met some other people. There was an interesting project that somebody applied for to clean up the area over in Inca with the homeless. And I mean, I think she had 6-7 yards of trash and debris that she got a Dottie a vehicle. But what was interesting is that she took grant money and paid some of these people who were there to clean up the mess. So some of the people were with the encampment, and I was like, that's a terrific idea about, engaging some of the people to help with their own,
Well, I mean,
it was something to
I
think about as an organization about, there's more than one way to approach things. And, we could be
you're right.
approaching the individuals themselves and engaging them. I'm not saying you do it, Pete. I was just impressed by the individual who decided to
That
do it
sounds
this way.
that sounds good, but like I had to clean up North Jason because that has been a dumping field for over 20 years. And so that's why I had to do all the things that I had to do to clean it up and to make sure that it didn't get turned into a junkyard again.
Yeah.
That's why I put up a gated area, and then I put a fake fence with some big rocks in front of it. But that homeless camp has been there for years. And it's because the fence off of I-70 is down. So I mean, I can only do what I can do, and I really wish I could help these people. But I mean, I don't have the training to go, well, what's your issue? Is it mental health? Is it drug
Yeah,
abuse?
that's
Blah, blah,
probably
blah, blah,
not,
blah.
that's
It's
probably
outside
not
of
the
all of
safest
our-
thing to do either.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in that position without proper resources and training.
Hey,
Well,
so-
I had a meth guy living in the weld shop.
Oh,
That was quite interesting. Well, and then I had to evict meth maggots off the property because they scammed us from the very start. I had an interesting 2022, that's for sure.
guys, I want to just keep moving it along.
yeah.
Let's move it.
Anybody
So,
else?
anything else anybody would like to bring up about the neighborhood?
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Pete. Okay, I'll just move on. The next thing is the,
Hey, Pete, I know you show up these meetings. Please let us know after
Yeah.
doing the 311. Let us know next month whether you had a response or anything, because I think the bigger picture would be, if you get no response, then we really need to escalate it through different channels. So just let us know if you're getting a response going down the path the city asks us to go down. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for explaining the process to me, and I'll follow those channels. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is our reports and some quick updates. And really, the one thing that I think we only have, unless anybody has anything else, is an update on what we're calling the 44th Avenue corridor discussion. And this started a while ago. I mean, probably actually back when even we started the conservation overlay discussions, and has sort of come to be highlighted lately because of losing some of the commercial spaces to residential along that corridor. And the survey that was done for the property down at 44th and Tejon. And Troopty and I had a discussion with Amanda Sandoval last week about moratoriums, trying to sort of pause things until we can get a better handle on what 44th becomes. That's not really a mechanism that's available to us, as they describe it, and it was pretty clear why that isn't really a mechanism, because we have to have something in place that we're trying to get to before we can stop people from doing stuff previously. So what we've talked about is maybe coming up with some sort of discussion on how we guide the development on 44th along there in those commercial areas, and what that means for Sunnyside, as protecting that as sort of our retail commercial sort of spine down the middle of the neighborhood. And the discussion sort of has morphed into perhaps doing like some sort of design overlay in that area and forming like another task force, work group, similar to what we have just recently finished with the conservation overlay CO7 and CO8. So we'll be bringing some of that. We don't have a lot to discuss on that at this point, other than if there's anybody that's really interested in it. I know Brad has expressed interest in 44th and those sort of things. So we'd like to rally the troops and start having those discussions about what the proper channel might be or avenue to accomplish some of those goals and make sure that we do what the community sees and wants for that street, or I guess avenue.
And to add to that, what Rod and I are going to kind of talk about over the next couple of weeks, you know, after talking to Amanda Sandoval and saying, hey, what is the right process? What is the right tool? And the design overlay, as he said, is probably the right tool. But, you know, we have design overlays in different places like Tennyson, we talk about a lot, but Tennyson and 44th are very different for reasons of the types of corridors they are. So we have some different issues and challenges. So, you know, what Rod and I are going to talk about is kind of really putting together a project plan for beginning this discussion. We don't know where it'll end up, right? It's not about like, we know what must happen. It's about like starting this conversation, you know, a mapping exercise, kind of looking at that corridor and thinking about how many businesses, square footage, you know, how much can we afford to lose and not lose? Where are the easiest wins in terms of here's a corner, here's a node, here's something we can make a shift and a change really quickly to not lose and also develop what we want. And then we're also thinking about people who want to join, but not just, you know, also expertise, right? So, because we're going to need people with some expertise, you know, before it moves towards a public process, which it will, because, you know, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. It really goes through. So Rod and I are just beginning the discussions, just starting to put a project plan together. This is the meeting and group that we will be working through. And we will be reaching out to people. So again, you know, a couple of people have already reached out to us, you know, saying we're interested in this corridor. We will help, you know, be champions to develop something. So we're going to start with those people, but at the end, we'll be developing a task force to move this. And I think we will have partnership from Amanda Sandoval's office. And like we were saying, it's a different challenge, and it may be solving for a challenge that exists in other parts of the city. That means we may be developing something that someone else can duplicate, just like Tennyson on Tennyson Street is something they're thinking about how to put in other places, but 44th Avenue is a different beast. So
right, and yeah, that's the one thing that Amanda actually originally sort of suggested. Would we adopt design overlay 8, I believe it is, that's Tennyson Street?
So we can't. Why we can't is what
why we can't do that is because of the significant differences that there are along and you know, all of us know this intrinsically, but then when you think about it, it kind of, you're like, wow, that's right. Like, so Tennyson is a street which they have alley support for those businesses along the back because the alleys run parallel to streets. But what the struggle is in these corridors that have businesses on them that are avenues, traditionally in Denver, the alleys are perpendicular to the avenues, generally speaking. And so it was interesting to understand that dynamic, and it makes it a significantly bigger challenge when you're talking about, you know, creating or preserving businesses there when they don't have that alley support behind them all the time along that corridor. So I think the first thing I wrote down the other day when I was taking notes, and the first item on the agenda for any task force that we put together, our work group, will be developing the narrative that describes what we're really looking to accomplish along there. So anybody that has expertise in that, and like Tripty said, or wants to be involved in it, let us know.
And we will officially put out asks and really socialize through all of our platforms to do this. But this was just like Rod and I and a conversation with Amanda to say, hey, how do we move this forward? And now that the conservation overlay is kind of at a completion, we can take our energy onto kind of the next one, which is our Main Street. That was always the plan. Conservation overlay, Main Street, and TOD, kind of the industrial area is yet another one that we will be eventually discussing here. But more to come on this because I think there's a lot of interest, and I think that's great. I think we're going to have a lot more engagement on this corridor because it's specific and it's really relatable to people, much more than like an entire, neighborhood and zoning changes. So more to come on this.
So I see we're ahead a little bit, Trupti. So I just want to add one more little update.
We should update on this.
I'm sure everybody here is pretty, been following along quite a bit with the conservation overlays for Sunnyside. And I see Melissa just hopped on here too. Hi. We just last week we had the planning board meeting, and both CO7 and CO8 were approved by the planning board with a vote of 7-1. And so now it goes on. I believe the next step is getting it up before the city council.
Their subcommittee, the
subcommittee,
land use, transportation, and infrastructure.
So yeah, it will be at Ludi next Tuesday
Ludi,
at 10:30 a.m.
Yes.
And
So that's,
hey, Melissa, you can cover Ludi date and city council date on your update. Is that okay?
that's fine.
Yeah. So we move forward through the first piece, which is planning board, and it passed 6-1. And
7-1.
No, 6-1. I thought
It was 6-1.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was 6-1. And the recording, I haven't checked recently, but at least 2 days after the recording wasn't up. But I did send out, where the recordings are housed, but you can listen. It was 3.5 hours of the recording
it went a long time.
for just this hearing. But it's very interesting. If you guys are really interested in how the sausage is made when we talk about land use or city council, listen to some of those recordings. They're very interesting and eye-opening about how people think and how the committees function and how decisions are made. So I would encourage everyone to listen to those things. But we are lucky that it did pass. I mean, lucky.
Well,
but-
and there were some really thoughtful questions brought up, and then there were some other things that I just thought were kind of bizarre that were brought up during it. It's just kind of, I think, how planning and probably city council meetings go. So yeah, like Trupti said, watch it if you ever have a chance. It's an interesting thing to watch.
And if you haven't sent a letter of support yet, and you are supportive, we could still use a letter of support now for the next step, right? The planning board is an advisory to city council. This is their, saying, yeah, we think this should move forward. But city council is who ultimately makes that decision, go, no go. So if folks either want to speak at that or send letters, we're still looking for letters of support. And Melissa, I'm sure you can reiterate that as well, because you sent an email out not that long ago. But just want to make sure that you guys know we definitely could use more letters of support.
And we'll send out reminders to the group, the Google group, and updates, as the month goes through, so you guys can stay up to speed on the progress of that.
Yeah, when we share the recording, we'll throw some notes like the minutes and stuff and how-tos and informations, instructions on with that in the next few days.
So perfect. Well, is there anything else for updates? I mean, we're a few minutes ahead and I don't see the next Justin or Chris in here.
Does anybody have questions on these two updates that we just went through? We've got a few minutes so we can entertain a couple of questions.
So
I was
Rod,
going to say, we could also switch out things and Paige could go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
We can do that too. Jonathan has started to say something.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then we'll jump to Paige.
so when we talk about the 44th stuff, I think a lesson that this group needs to learn is that an overlay is going to take a long time. And one of the things I think we should think about in that time frame is to remember back what happened when city council realized the accidental loophole of slot houses and started the Denver-wide conversation of that slot houses are a problem. And the number of properties that were immediately submitted slot house plans so that they could get them in before any changes were made. And then that forced city council to have to put in place a moratorium because the builders were just going to build as many of those slot properties as possible. The moment that there is a movement, which it's now, right? I mean, people know that we're going to do this. It's not like we're operating in secret. We're not some like reptile cabal. We're just neighbors who want to have a nice street. What's going to start happening is businesses and people who are going to develop are going to try and lock in their properties and lock in their development to get rid of the business and do what the guys doing over on 44th and Tejon. And they're not a secret cabal either, right? They're just guys looking to make as much money as fast as possible. If we try and do this through a 3-year, 2-year city planning, if we try and tag this onto NPI, which is going to be still at least a year, we're going to lose all the spots that we're trying to preserve.
Well, and
Because our process will be much too slow compared to the money that can come in, knock down a building, and throw down a permit to build something with no businesses in it. Now, I don't know how we can do it something faster, but the one idea I have, and in all honesty, I didn't do my research before coming here tonight because I've been focused on bicycle stuff.
uh-oh, Paige, watch out.
The one idea that circulates in my mind is our biggest thing is that the MS zoning basically allows you to build with a business on the first floor as an option rather than a requirement. I wonder if a really fast route, because it would be mostly uncontroversial, mostly, nothing's right, would be to simply make an amendment to that particular piece of text in the MS zoning for this road, not for the whole city, that says required to have business on the first floor instead of option.
It was
Jonathan, that's exactly
in the short term.
That's exactly what I said today, and I think the mechanism to do that is a design overlay.
It's still an overlay, yeah.
It's still an overlay.
It's still an overlay, but part of what got caught up with our overlay, our current overlay, is that we wrote it, well, we brainstormed it, Catherine wrote it, it went to the city, and the city spent 2 years kicking it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. If we give them now I know that what I haven't done is pulled up the MS zoning and seen just how few words you could change.
Rod's been looking at this.
I've been looking at it, and I looked up the MS. I actually like the descriptions of MS over MX, which was suggested that we move it to an MX.
Right. But if we can find a way to make
I completely agree.
Here is one line of text that we want to change, then we could cut this we could theoretically make this whole process a lot shorter.
There's more though, Jonathan. One of them is when you take a property and say, and dictate in a sense that the first floor must be this, right? We now have to start thinking about, how do we incentivize them or make right? Here's the thing, we may have to do a 3-story to get the first story being commercial. That's a text amendment. That's a rezoning, meaning as we think through, and this is kind of the exercise and the work that Rod and I are starting to talk about, which is how can we do it? What are some of the things that, concessions we have to make as a neighborhood in order to make these happen? And if that means rezoning has its own set of timelines. These conservation overlays has a set of timelines, and all of that has to do with community engagement, surveys, set number of meetings, and then give it to the city, then the
Yeah.
city has its own 2-3 month timeline. It still runs into about a year. I mean, I can't imagine doing this faster than a year. If all of us agreed today, we had the answer. And I think
I guess, Jonathan, I agree 100% with everything you just said, and they're conversations that at a high level, like Trupti and I have had over the last couple of weeks. And those are the exact conversations that I think this work group should immediately start working on, because like you said, it's going to change how people address that street, because they'll know this is going on, and whether they try to sneak things in or under. But I think urgency is part of the key point in getting this started like pretty quickly if we can.
Well, Rod, and you and I have talked about it, and I think part of one of the ways to kind of soften the blow for 44th too, right, is that I think the MS language needs to change citywide, right? There's the Main Street language does not make sense for Main Street, right? So I think there is an opportunity to actually potentially get, instead of rezoning, let's just change the wordage in the zoning. And I don't know when the next text amendment is coming up for zoning changes, right? Because like that would be the appropriate time to change MS.
it's like the end of the year. I think it's the end of the year. And
Yeah, because the last time was July of 20, I believe.
July. It might be July.
So this typically in July is when it gets approved. So it might be getting started, but like the changing the text, changing the language of MS, I think is the appropriate method for what we need to do, right? Like I think that Main Street zoning language is correct for 44th. It's just Main Street zone makes no sense. To be able to say you can do whatever you want because we have the right by use. So I think the there could be extra backing by doing it that way too, right? Because now it's not just Sunnyside versus 44th. It's the entire city of Denver fixing the MS language. And if you fix the language of MS, you no longer have to rezone Sunnyside. It's already MS2 until Clay, and there's MS3 thrown in there as well, right? So I think that is, to me, seems like the path of least resistance. And personally, from like, outside of Sunnyside, I think that's the right move for Denver as a whole, not just our particular neighborhood. So I think, but there's also the ability to potentially get substantially more backing by having the whole city, because like there is no easy fix to this. It's impossible to easily fix it. And I think the path, the more citywide it is, hopefully the less it's like, to Jonathan's point, right? I agree too. Like, the senior center is up for sale, right? As soon as we put something down there, somebody's going to come in and demo it. But if it's less focused on 44th, maybe we can get away with less people coming in and swooping in and demoing buildings and building 55 townhomes where there used to be retail.
Perfect. We have 2 of our first volunteers for the work group. Thank you.
You already knew I volunteered.
You were already targeted, just so you know. We already had you. We already had you down.
So perfect. No, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with everything both of you just said. And so I would love to continue that conversation with you. And as we get this work group started, we'll figure out.
The point. This is the beginning of the conversation, not the very, very beginning. And we're jumping on because we don't really want to wait, As soon, we're now done with one overlay and we're freeing our time from the amount of energy that consumed. We're moving on to the next one, as was always kind of planned. I still don't see Justin on.
Yeah, I don't. I'm going to stop sharing. And Paige, would you like to share your screen, or would you like to have me bring up your presentation?
Well, whatever you prefer.
So I was trying this beforehand and I had your presentation here. Let's see, where is it? Sorry, it's in one of my other tabs. It doesn't let me scroll through it in a really good way, like a PowerPoint on the Google Doc, because it treats a PDF weird. So I think that might be best if you could share it from your screen as a PDF.
Yeah.
And I'll stop sharing here. And I think you have permission to share.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'm going to share.
Just know if you need anything.
Okay. Thanks, Karen. Okay. Sharing my screen. Also sharing sound, because I do have a video in here that I'd like to share.
Fancy.
Yeah, we'll see if this is my first time using it with Zoom, so we'll see if this works. Okay. Okay, hey everybody, I'm Paige Colton. I'm with the Denver Department of Transportation Infrastructure, joined by my colleague Karen Good here. Trupti invited us because she had heard and we're making some modifications to some traffic circles that are on 41st Ave in your neighborhood. And I just thought I'd come and give a little bit more education on how to use the traffic circles, why we're putting them in, and then just in general background on what's happening across your streets in Sunnyside and the Northwest as a whole. So this is my agenda today, just talking quickly about the background of the Northwest Community Transportation Network project and program, and then what Northwest Bikeway installations we're going to be making over the next few months. And then lastly, traffic circles. Okay, so just starting with background on what our community transportation networks are. So these are multimodal plans that were focused on smaller areas of the city. We worked to hear all transportation concerns and to prioritize and implement projects to address those concerns. And the first phase is installing these low stress bike projects. So we're focusing right now in Northwest, Central, and South Central, and you can see that on the map here. We have installed a couple new bikeways over the past couple of months in the Northwest, and we are currently building in the Central area, so you might be seeing some changes around there. And then South Central will be over the next year or so. So our goals are improve safety, prioritize multimodal projects, making sure people can get around however they want to. We really want to deliver these high comfort bikeways as quickly as possible. And then we just want to be able to move more people more effectively. So this project, let's see, started in 2020, right when the pandemic hit, unfortunately. So we had one in-person stakeholder meeting and then switched them all to virtual, which Trupti was involved in. We've done a couple of years of engagement. We had 6 public open houses, a number of stakeholder working group meetings, meeting and having representatives from all the different RNOs in the area. And then we offered office hours as well for people to come and give us their feedback directly on this whole process. So what are we putting in right now? This is our construction, our plan, design, construct schedule. So we started our planning phase in 2020. We actually built some projects in 2020 and 2021. The ones highlighted in yellow are those that overlap with the Sunnyside boundaries. We have our first big construction package that started late last year and is going into this year. And then we have a couple projects that are kind of phase 2 plan and design projects. So that includes North Tejon and North Lowell Boulevard. So I'm going to show you this on a map to make it a little bit easier. So the projects that are solid lines are existing projects. The projects that are dotted are projects that are planned. The ones that are complete as part of this process, we installed the North SUNI buffered bike lane / neighborhood bikeway. We completed this West 46th Ave portion, a bike lane. In yellow are the ones we are preparing to construct. So we have Clay, 41st, which is in progress in the Sunnyside area in particular. And then again, North Tejon is still in design. Okay, so switching gears to what type of bikeways we are installing. One kind of newer typology for the city of Denver are neighborhood bikeways. The first one we installed was West 35th Avenue. And we've made some modifications to how we do it since we installed that one. So you're seeing a pretty new types of intersection treatments and mid-block treatments that might be unfamiliar to you. And the main goal here is to slow down cars and encourage only through traffic to be on these streets, not only through traffic, only neighborhood traffic to be on these streets, try to divert through traffic to other streets and make it really safe and comfortable for people walking and biking on these streets. So I'm going to share a video that kind of just walks through what this is. You explain it better than me. Are you able to hear the sound?
Streets in Denver.
Oh, we were for a second.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Just checking. Okay, maybe I should turn the volume up. That'll help. Okay, trying.
Streets in Denver vary, so Dottie chooses bicycle facility types to meet each street's unique needs and context. One type of bicycle facility prioritizes making neighborhoods safer for you and your neighbors to walk, ride a bike, or drive. We call it the Neighborhood Bikeway. Neighborhood bikeways are designed to fit the street where you live, with minimal parking impacts to make it safer and more comfortable for everyone to share the same space. Neighborhood bikeways can also include design treatments to keep traffic volumes and speeds low. Where traffic volumes are too high, neighborhood bikeways may include design treatments that prioritize local trips and reroute cut-through trips. And neighborhood bikeways make crossing major streets safer and easier. Lower volumes and lower speeds also make streets safer and more comfortable for people walking and driving. Neighborhood bikeways make it easier for you to get around Denver, starting right at your own front door. For more information, visit denvergov.org or connect with us via social media.
Okay. So I also want to point out, so we have a whole page on our website that's dedicated to neighborhood bikeways. So it kind of talks through why we're putting in neighborhood bikeways and then has details on all the different treatment types that we're installing. So if you have any additional questions that you think of after this, feel free to come to this website and take a look. We'd also love for you to pass along this website and that video just to make people aware of what's happening and why we're installing the different treatments that we are.
Hey, Paige, wasn't there another one that kind of explained all the different bike infrastructure and what its purpose is, right? That wasn't this one, right?
A video you're thinking of, Troop D?
I don't know. I know you shared 2 links and I shared it on our Google form that went out saying, hey, look at these 2 things. And then, to share your questions and comments.
Yes.
But like what bollards and, how this different bike infrastructure is to be, I think that there's a lot of these things that people just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me actually, so neighborhood bikeways are just one of the types of bikeways that we install here in Denver. And so that was, I think, one of the websites I gave you, Troop D.
Yes.
And then the other website was our community transportation network page,
Correct. Yes.
which talks through what we're doing, where construction is happening. We have all these FAQs if anyone's curious. And then you can click on the Northwest link here. And this is where you can find specific details about each of the project that's happening, what are the statuses in construction. And you can see our 60% design for each of these. And you can sign up for project updates too, if you're interested.
And so besides the stuff that is actually being constructed now, obviously
Mhm.
that is getting a lot of attention because it's happening and people are seeing it. So I think there's
Definitely.
big questions around that. And then there's going to be what we're looking at. So like that Tejon. So forget, Lowell, but Tejon is what is happening on Tejon. This is a future thing, but what I really want people to be more aware of is what's going to happen before it happens, right? Not after it happens.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
as far as Tejon and the fact that it's in design, and please, in a couple minutes, if you can just tell us why Tejon is in design and what are where are we going with that?
Yeah, definitely. And Tripti, let me finish my presentation, then I'll come back to Tejon. So I just wanted to talk through traffic circles really quickly. Or I just had a couple more slides on it, and
Sorry.
then I'll return. No worries. Oh no, don't play again. Okay. So in terms of neighborhood bikeways in Sunnyside, the two that overlap with your area are North Clay Streets from West 32nd to 46th, and then that West 41st Ave, which goes from Perry Street to Inca Street Trail. And then the two that exist, I mentioned West 35th Ave, which we've had in for a couple of years now. And then North Perry Street was actually just installed. That's just north of Sloan's Lake. And that's a really great example to check out kind of our newer treatments, our newer treatment styles, and then a more recent construction project. So just getting into traffic circles specifically, since there's been some issues with the ones on 41st, and I wanted to share the update with you on the 41st Ave traffic circles. So we heard that there was a lot of issues with people driving around the traffic circles at Grove and Wyandotte. So we went out and took a look at all of the traffic circles along 41st, and we are going to adjust the radius of those traffic circles to make sure those problems that vehicles were having, they don't have them anymore. And we kind of better took into account the way the inlets are located at those intersections, and the movement of school buses and fire trucks that need to get around to all the schools along 41st. So that's the update on those. We're also making some adjustments to the signage, but I don't know if anyone will notice too much. So just at a high level, what is a traffic circle? So it's a circular intersection that reduces traffic speeds by requiring motorists to move cautiously through this new conflict point. Why do we install traffic circles? It's to lower traffic speeds on streets designated as neighborhood bikeways to make sure the street is comfortable for people walking and biking. And then where do we install traffic circles? It's at the intersections of neighborhood bikeways and another local street. You may notice at bigger streets like collectors and arterials, we have different types of treatments we use. We might put in a median refuge island that helps people kind of do a two-stage cross, so go to the middle and then be able to cross again after looking for traffic in both directions. In some places we're putting in, we call RRFBs, which are rapid rectangular flashing beacons. Those are the ones that have a big pedestrian sign and there's a flashing rectangular beacon. So you press a button and it blinks and cars will stop for you. And then how to use the traffic circle. So just real basic. So as a driver, bicyclist, or scooter ride, it's slow down as you approach a traffic circle, yield or stop to give the right of way to anyone who arrived first at the intersection or is already in the intersection. And then if you arrive at the same time as another driver, bicyclist, or scooter, yield the right of way to the person on the immediate right, kind of like you do at a bigger roundabout or at a four-way stop. And then lastly, always yield to pedestrians, regardless of where you are in the intersection. And then, so if you're coming from the south, you're turning right, you just make a typical right turn, but stay within the lines that we have designated here, obviously slowly and cautiously. And then if you're turning left, the movement is to go straight, go around the circle, and then take a left rather than make a direct left. Okay. I am going to go back to your question about Tejon, Trupti.
Yep, and Paige, sorry
Yeah.
to jump in here, just to
Yeah.
be respectful of people's time. If we can move into maybe just a few questions. I know we're going to get a
Sure.
ton more questions than we can possibly answer tonight.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
Paige,
so,
you could skip my question. I was
Okay.
posting that for other people. I
Okay.
think you should answer their questions first.
and
Yeah,
then
definitely.
anybody that's got questions that we don't get to tonight, feel free to like drop them here in the chat or email them to me. I'll put my email in the chat, and we'll make sure we get them to Paige, and then we can get you guys some answers to those other questions.
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Bill's got his hands up first, so he's faster on the buttons. So Bill, welcome. Go ahead.
I think my question's very basic. Paige, relative to the, I guess I was calling them roundabouts, you're calling them traffic circles, so there's probably a technical difference there. My general understanding is that you yield to the traffic from the left. And I have a bad memory, so maybe I'm remembering inaccurately, but it seems to me that the test traffic circles that have been up for quite some time in several of our neighborhoods, that was the rule, that you were to yield to traffic from the left. And now all of these traffic circles have now been put in, and the rules are different, or they're different than I was perceiving them to be. Can you talk both about whether my perception is accurate or not, and why it is not that we're yielding to traffic from the left rather than this general yield, which to me as a driver feels less safe because it's not as controlled? Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, it's following Colorado law at kind of any four-way intersection or like larger roundabouts. It's if you arrive at the exact same time as another vehicle, you're going to yield to the person on your right. Now, if somebody is ahead of you and is already in the traffic circle or at the traffic circle, then you yield to them. I don't have too much more information to add. I don't know if Karen, you do, but I'm happy to check on that about the 35th Ave one specifically.
Well, and Bill, I'm guessing it may be just that differentiation between you always do yield to those on your left that are in the circle already. What Paige was describing is simply if that, oh gosh, we just got here at the same time. Who goes first? Or do we all just sit here waiting for somebody to make the move? So it's just if you arrive at the same time that you do the yield to the person on your right.
You yield to the person on your right or your left?
Left.
So if you arrive at the exact same time.
Well, but you guys keep saying that, but the practicality of that is
we're simply stating the Colorado rules of the road, that if two cars arrive at an intersection at the exact same time, you yield to the person on your right. So if these two cars got here, this car goes, I'm sorry, yield to the person. This car goes first, this car goes second. If this car is already in the circle, yes, you getting to the circle certainly do yield to who's to your left because they're already in motion. And so I don't think we're really in a space to like go into detail over Colorado traffic law, but we're just restating what the Colorado.
But you know what? When we add new infrastructure that makes people have to like, hey, how do I do this? And what are the rules? I think the education campaign on this may be lacking. And I think Bill's, bringing up kind of like this level of confusion that exists. And that I know, at least in Bill's and, in West Highland, these have been there for a couple of years. In Sunnyside, it's completely new. right? These are new traffic circles. So we're just at the beginning of the confusion that people are going to feel when we get there. And what does Dottie, can Dottie do about this education aspect of, kind of like, hey, want to
Sure.
everyone, there's Colorado laws and this is how it applies to what we just did. And I think that's missing, so something for you guys to consider.
Yeah, well,
That's
I've
great.
had
That's
lots of
great.
conversations about this, and I think it's sort of a joke, but it's not a joke because it is serious that Americans just aren't as familiar with roundabouts,
Right.
because they're not as predominant in this country as they are, say, in Europe, and there is a learning curve that is going to take place. But that goes back to we have to educate people. So, are there any
Definitely.
other questions?
Well, I know Jonathan had a song, like kind of like,
I don't
know.
see anybody else's hands up, and I want to be respectful. We kind of flip-flopped with Justin and Chris.
Sorry, Justin and Chris.
Yeah, no, they're okay. I've been texting
That's
them,
okay.
they were running late too.
But Paige and Karen, I really want to thank you because for coming. And I know that this is a bigger conversation that you can just go over in a half an hour, but it is tremendously impactful on the neighborhood as these go in. And I've got a few questions, but I'll hold them and I'll email you guys later, just so that I can help disseminate some of this information. And I posted my email in the chat there, so if anybody wants to contact me directly and we can get them in touch with Paige or Karen for further questions, please do so.
And
I will add something. Maybe Dottie can do an event where we bike through this and you guys can stop and explain how you bike and how you drive through some of this infrastructure, because I think education is what may be missing here.
You'll have to do it in the summer because it's basically been impassable for the last 15 days.
Yeah. Welcome to
Another-
For
Colorado.
everybody, really.
Dottie,
Drivers, people walking.
No, it's
yeah.
because they don't clean it. Like, I've been riding my bike for 12 years in this city. The 35th Avenue Bikeway is completely unusable since the last snowstorm.
Jonathan, did you get your questions answered? Because I know you said you had stuff that you were going back and forth on. Did you get answers to your questions?
No, my emails have not been returned to me by the city.
So
Yeah, Jonathan, I've gotten your emails and we're working on a response. So
it's been 30 days.
Yep, we're working on a response. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you, Paige.
All right, well, if there's no other questions immediately, let's go ahead and we'll move on to the next agenda item. Justin and Chris are potential buyers, or they've recently purchased the property at 2839 West 44th. They don't have a presentation tonight, but they wanted to talk about what they're thinking about for that property and wanted to come here and discuss it with everybody. So Chris, Justin, take it away.
Thanks, Rod. Appreciate the chance to speak with everyone here. As you mentioned, Chris and I are purchasing the property at 2839 West 44th. We are closing here shortly. And we met with Tripty, just wanted to understand a little bit more about the neighborhood. Chris and I have been working in the Rhino neighborhood for the past decade and actually led several of the neighborhood organizations over there. I chaired the Rhino Business Improvement District. We formed a design review committee with guidelines over there. Chris sat on the board of the General Improvement District, and we sort of did that along with our day jobs, which was working with Zeppelin development on the private development side. So very familiar with kind of community engagement, community involvement. We normally were doing what you all are doing here today. And so in purchasing the property, we just simply wanted to introduce ourselves, let you know sort of generally what we're thinking, and just kind of put face to name a little bit here on some new neighbors in the community, and appreciate the chance to speak with you all. And Chris, you can tell me if I missed anything there in the intro.
I think you've got it. I just, just sitting in the last 10 minutes, we've worked with Karen in the past on transportation issues in Rhino and trying to improve pedestrian and bike infrastructure, as well as Karen, good to see you. I think part of our approach to sort of acquiring this project or this property and our work in general is to be ingrained in the community. We're new to the community, so if nothing else, we're just here to say hi and let you know that we are keeping the building at the property. So we're not planning on raising that. We will be redeveloping that. We're actually putting our office as well as our third development partner's office in that building. And then really working to reactivate sort of that area in terms of really having some active ground for retail. That is sort of big picture. We close on the 23rd, so about a week and a half. Our intent also is to be talking to you all more and being engaged on the community level, figuring out ways that we can help thinking through the growing pains, having seen that in other communities. Yeah, we want to make ourselves available.
And I think to that point, yeah, we want to introduce ourselves and make ourselves a resource as well. So to the degree that we can weigh in on local issues, provide any insight, or just sit back and listen and understand more what's going on in the community, I think that's our intent. Chris and I both live in Denver. On the east side, I live in Cole. Chris lives in Whittier. I was born in Colorado, raised in Colorado. Chris has been in Colorado a long time. So we're local folks. Our development company is 3 partners, small group, very much focused on community-driven projects. Our company is called Natural Object. You can read more about our approach to development at our website, which is naturalobject.dev, short for development, if you want to check that out. So yeah, we're not here to make an ask of any kind, just more to introduce ourselves, and we appreciate the chance to do so.
Well, I appreciate. Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say, I appreciate you guys coming and talking. We had a discussion before you popped on. We were beginning. In fact, this was tonight. We just announced that there is going to be a workforce working on the neighborhood's vision for the future of 44th and what that can be along there. And hearing that you are talking about engaging at the street level, commercial or retail, is part of that discussion, and something I'm definitely a fan of. So I appreciate you guys coming and speaking. And as this work group gets moving forward on that vision for 44th, we'd love to have you guys involved, and especially as property owners, and help and give us feedback on that as well. So thank you very much.
I want to add that, I had the conversation, they reached out and, just kind of like, hey, we just want to be part of the community. I had a coffee with them, and I told them exactly where the community's at on 44th, and what the survey that went out, the loss of commercial, the need for thinking about the future of this corridor and making sure that it is actually active and serves the need, and also how these guys can partner with us, and not just as a business member, but also in some of the things that they've done in, like, for instance, being, president of a bid, or, being an employee of the bid, and also thinking about general improvement districts and how to institute some of these things. So they really are a partner. What I do want to call out, and the other part was, I was like, you're not going to build housing and keep that? Please come and tell everybody this, because that is what everyone wants to hear. This is kind of a poster child. This is golden child, rather, because everybody's worried about that. So that was part of it. Now, what I do want to call out is Jamie, are you still, Jamie from Better Buzz is on here. She's your neighbor, across the way. Jamie, did you have any questions for these guys or anything like that? I'm not sure I've seen you on these calls very often, but maybe you're on here because you've got one of your neighbors who are buying across the street on here. Yeah, maybe she walked away. Yeah, but yeah, so I mean, Jamie owns Better Buzz. She's gonna be a block away, maybe across. Oh, there she is. Hey, Jamie.
Working on unmuting.
I figured these guys being here might have been the impetus for you joining here, because you usually don't. But do you have any questions for these guys, or any thoughts on the 44th Avenue corridor? You and I have talked about that corridor as well. Jamie is a business on this corridor, so wanted to give you a minute to kind of share maybe your thoughts about this corridor. You're muted. Oops. Can you unmute?
Looks like she's trying to
She's
unmute.
trying,
She's
yeah.
trying, she's going through all of the buttons.
Is the person who's the admin for this able to unmute her?
I don't think you
Let's
muted
see.
people.
I think you can't unmute. You can just ask to unmute.
Got it.
I'll click on the ask to unmute and see what happens. Maybe that'll pop up on there a little bit better. Guys, I just went to your website. I'm just gonna post it there in the chat for everybody. So if they want to go check you guys out.
Excellent.
I am not Jamie, but I'll just jump in really quickly as she's trying to unmute. It's really nice to meet you, Justin and Chris. My name is Johanna. I live a couple blocks away from this property. And just really happy that you are community minded, that you have a vision that goes beyond the property alone and incorporates the neighborhood more broadly. So thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens.
Nice to meet you, Joanna. And yeah, that's very much our intent. We kind of, our background in development is really projects that have long-term value for communities. We believe that providing community value brings value in every way, and it is the basis for our business, building long-term customer base for our retail tenants and our office tenants. And so great to meet you, and very much want to provide something that works well for you and your neighbors.
I think I figured it out, guys. I'm so sorry.
You did.
Perfect. Did she get it or did she undo it? Oh, there she is.
Okay, yeah. Jamie, please share about yourself and about
rescue everybody. Yeah. And I actually talked on and sent a direct message too. I am really glad to see you all and that you're keeping the building. One of the things that I would say are very much just community outreach driven. As a small studio, we've been in business for about 5 years, and love that you have the space across the street. And one of the, I think, key drivers for us in the neighborhood is just really bringing people together, and real estate, like actual space, is important. And we're constantly looking for ways that we can find opportunities to bring people together in even more ways. And so just looking at the physical location, if there are opportunities for us to talk about that community outreach forward in a social outreach impact way together, I'd love to see just opportunities to connect on that. So
That'd be great. Jamie, if you don't mind, if you could DM on the, send me your email in the direct message, and I'll shoot you a note. We'll be, as I mentioned, closing on the 23rd, but we'll be at the property here. I'll be there tomorrow and next week as well, in advance of our closing. And it'd be great to, just find ways that we can think about really trying to activate and program that's end of the 44th corridor. I think there's a lot of potential. And then to Justin's point, we're also here to listen and to learn and figure out what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, and where we can fit in.
great. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you all.
Perfect. Well, thank you for all the feedback. So I'm going to keep moving on because we have one more thing in the unfinished business that we're going to bring up next. But really quick, I had this in the new business because it's something new that I had thought about over the last couple of months and been thinking about doing. And I just wanted to bring it up here. We'll put it in the announcements when we send things out. I'm going to start, at least at the beginning, it'll be me. I was hoping some other people might join me eventually on the first and third Mondays of the month. And I'm going to start it at least right for right now, because I've gotten permission from them at Radiator and they've been really grateful to donate their space. First and third Mondays from 4 to 6, have a SUNY sort of land use committee, just coffee, happy hour, beer talk, whatever, so that we can just be more engaged with the community and neighbors, and either get feedback from neighbors about what they see is going on well in the neighborhood and things that they're concerned about. So, and the reason I chose those 2 Mondays was so that if people have stuff they want to bring up at our meetings here on the second Tuesdays, they can get in the week before. And then, then we'll skip a week and then follow up on the third Monday. That way, if they hear stuff at the meetings here, they can bring them up again or find out sort of feedback from what happened if they brought up something during the meeting. So I'll start doing that for the next few months here and see how it goes. And, it'll move and adapt. I don't know really if it's going to be successful or not, but if anybody wants to join me or has any feedback, let me know. And I'll be starting it next week over there, the third, or not next week, but the following week, the third Monday. So anyway, thanks again, Chris and Justin, for joining us today. And I walk my dogs by there all the time, so I'll swing by and say hi.
Please do.
Yeah, and thanks, Rod. I think, trying to get to people where they are and trying to increase engagement, trying to increase the visibility of kind of the important things that actually come to this meeting that people are I think are interested in, but they're not aware of. We're just trying to figure out, Rod, trying to figure out how we could be better about doing what we are trying to do. So I think this is, our attempt at increasing engagement and awareness about issues and whatever they are, within the neighborhood. So I think this is whether, we'll try. I mean,
I don't know if it'll work or not. I mean, there was some intent behind that. One is it's their happy hour, so you can get beers, I think, for half price and stuff, and you can still get coffee or tea or something. Also, they said that, I talked to the manager over there, and she said that Mondays are their slowest days. So, if we can bring a few more customers in and help all the businesses along 44th, I thought, well, let's just do that, and we're kind of accomplishing two goals, So anyway,
absolutely. No, I think we're going to try. And if it doesn't work, we adapt and, try again. And I think we're going to continue to do that because I think that's what we need to do. So I really appreciate Rod stepping up to co-chair this group and also just come bring ideas and new ways to do what we do or what we were trying to do better. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And our next agenda item is the past the item, unfinished business, and we're gonna welcome and forgive me if Anshin, is that how you put it?
Yes.
Okay, and he's Billy Wang has been here previously to discuss a property on Inca, and Anshin's here to discuss that a little further and what they've got going on. The property address is at 4231 Inca Street on the agenda there, and Anshin, go ahead and take it away and let us know what you've got in mind there.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Anshin Wang, and Billy has a family emergency. So I'm really here to take notes and present. I think many of us have heard about this multiple times. This property is located at 4321 Inca Street. It's currently zone IA, and it's sandwiched between two CRX8 properties, 4295 to the north, and to the south is 4211 Inca Street. So we just want to complete a gap and clean up the zoning so that the whole block is CRXA on the east side. And I believe Councilwoman Sandoval is in support of this proposal, and I think Billy's ready to submit for the zoning application. So he would like to, if possible, for the everyone to vote in support. I know we need to work on a GNA letter, and Billy will do that with Troop T and everybody. So I'm here to answer any further questions and seek support.
Okay, yeah, and we've had several discussions about this property, and Billy has come to us several times. And we've had discussions here at the meetings, and I've seen some emails going around. In coming to support for support from the neighborhood organization, or from the, I guess that would be from the land use committee. We oftentimes, really. What's that?
The neighborhood, really. I mean,
really from the neighborhood.
Committee is just the gateway into the neighborhood. That's what we want, right?
Right.
The whole neighborhood. We're just a gateway drug.
And in the past, the committee has written letters of support from developers. I've even gotten a letter of support for a residential project that I did for a client here on Decatur Street when they had a zone map amendment that we did. So before the I guess the committee is the proposition to, should we write a letter of support for this? And I've talked to other people on the committee about wanting to know a little bit more, I guess, Anshin, about what you guys plan to do. We don't have a lot to vote on, is my perspective, in that we don't really know what the development will be or what you have plans for, in order for us to sort of approve or not approve or get behind and support. So one of the things we discussed is maybe you guys bringing to us a proposal that has some, more description on what the project may be for the property, or graphics or those type of things.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Billy's plans are, but my guess would be it would be an expansion of 4295 Inca, which we did present a concept a few years ago.
So Anjan, if Billy owns all three properties, right, and the two of them are already CRX8, and this is the third one, which is sandwiched in the middle, and you want CRX8, obviously that makes sense, right? But when we talk about a SUNI approval, one of the things that comes to mind is, well, we have to run that through the neighborhood. We run it through everyone, right? We give everybody an opportunity to weigh in on it. The problem is there's nothing to weigh in on, right? And what people need to see and understand is kind of the vision for that project, and how that will complement TOD and complement kind of everything that we're talking about in NPI, as far as, there could be a town center, there are going to be specific corridors, they're going to be pedestrian focus, whether it's green space, bikes. And it's really hard, because if I was just to say, if I can socialize this and say, he wants 8 stories, and do you say yes or no? I don't know what people would be thinking, right? I know a lot more because I'm ingrained in some of the conversations, but how does the neighborhood weigh your project as a project that they support without anything that resembles, a vision?
And that's what I think makes it harder. I do this for a living, so I understand, probably what you guys are looking to do on that property, but it's very hard to take that to a community for them to understand how it impacts them specifically. And I think that's what we're kind of looking for, at least. And if other people on the committee have comments or suggestions, please speak up. I've talked quite a bit about this, and what I think as a committee that I would like to see, at least, is something that we can take to the community that's tangible, that gives them a sense of how this is directly going to impact their community, their neighborhood, particularly the people that immediately around the property. And I know there's a lot going on over there.
Sure.
And I can appreciate that you guys have come and looked for our support as well. But I really feel like, as a committee and a neighborhood organization, we're, like Trupti said earlier, we're the portal through which we really sort of represent the neighborhood. And I feel like your general neighbor over there is going to have a hard time understanding if we bring to them, oh, they're just asking for a zoning change from the industrial zoning to 8-story. And it's helpful to have that type of graphics or impact, that'll show what kind of they can expect to happen on that property.
Sure.
Bill, you've got your hand up. Do you have a question really quick?
I've got a comment very quickly. I think there's a secondary or tertiary issue here that is aligned with the fact that the specifics of the project are not very defined. And that is that, as opposed to most of the developers that we see approaching us in this area for this large a project, Billy's organization does not have much experience if any, experience in projects of this size. And he also seemed to have a lot of things that are kind of on deck, but nothing's, I mean, he's also not brought forward resources, architectural development, you know, he doesn't have the experience, and he hasn't brought forward the resources. So it's been something that I personally, and I know a few others, have been concerned with relative to how important these big projects are over in the transit area.
Yeah, exactly. And I had the similar conversation where this is, I will say, I mean, I know that neighborhood is going that way. We've talked about even 12-story properties along that corridor there, but to go from a 2-story essentially industrial zone to an 8-story is a significant change, and something that I feel like the neighbors should be, you know, cognizant of and aware of how that's going to impact them. And so more information, I think, is needed for them to make sort of a reasonable, you know, understanding of what's going on and how it's affecting their neighborhood.
Sure. Can I share screen on something that was done on?
Yeah, I believe. Does everyone have access?
You
I
should.
believe?
Yeah, you should be able to just share screen. There's nothing else being
Yep,
shared.
there you go. It popped up, Anshin. Thank you.
Okay, so this will be 43rd and Inca. So this one is on the corner, and this is the one we presented a few years ago for the rezoning of 4295 Inca. So the subject property will be right here. And in this proposal, we had some open space that engages the pedestrian, the community, and we proposed some commercial use, and along with residential above the commercial and some residential use on the ground floor. So, I mean, without Billy here, or haven't spoken to him specifically, you know, I just want to bring this up as a starting point of discussion. So I would imagine that, so here's the property that we're talking about tonight, and it will be an extension of this concept where it's a mixed use development activating the street, and it'll be mostly residential with some commercial on the ground floor.
So is it a separate development, or will it be developed in tandem with the corner lot once the two parcels are similar zoning or the same zoning?
Three parcels.
Well, all three parcels. So is the idea that all three will become one larger single development, or will they be developed as single standalone parcels, each of them?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So I think this is the challenge, right? The challenge is, you know, you can come to us and say, we're going to build 3 of these things, but in reality, it's going to be one project, which would make sense. And no offense, like it totally makes sense. That's what I would do. But you guys need to come to us with an actual vision of what it's going to be, not just the goal of, can you just rezone this because it fits the need of what we're trying to do? I think for the most part, we're on board for the fact that it makes sense. But how do you take something to the community about a parcel that big? And I'm talking about how much square footage of retail, how many units, and in those units, how many are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, how many can house families? On the affordability side, obviously you have a formula that the city gives you, but then, you know, are you willing to, not you, you know, but Billy or whoever's going to develop it, are you willing to dig deeper onto that? You know, what are some of those things? It's hard to have that conversation because there is no concept.
Sure.
The larger things.
Yeah, I think it's too generic and it's too broad. It needs to be more specific. It needs to be something that we can take to the community that really, you know, whether I understand sometimes developments don't get built, but it needs to be something that's further developed than this, that is clear and concise about how it's going to impact the community, that we can take to the community, that you guys can reach out to the community and explain. And then once we receive support from the community and the feedback from the community, we as a committee can, vote to sort of approve or not approve of, the project, or write a letter of approval. Because really that's where the letter of approval comes from, is from the community that's impacted by this development.
And it's iterative. It's iterative, right? What we can't say is what the outcome of the next set of outreach could be. Like when we put some actual vision out to the neighborhood, they come back and say, but what about this? What about this? What about this? Then we have to talk about this. You guys need to respond to that. So like there's a lot of this kind of conversation and making sure everybody is on board before they, not just us, but the neighborhood, before they're able to say, yeah, I'm on board. I get it. Everything about this makes total sense. That's the goal. That's a goal you guys should be approaching and wanting. We can help. But like unless we can take that to the community and you guys can articulate your vision, the hard part is being able to say, yeah, everybody's on board. We don't know what we're on board for right now. I think that's the challenge with this. And if you guys really think it's going to develop as the 3 property, you guys should be bringing to us something that really resembles what you think is actually going to happen, not this one parcel, one parcel, one parcel. While I understand that the rezone happens at that level, the development will not. So what the community needs to see and understand is a vision for that area and property. And then, like I said, when we put it out there, what questions we get, where we go from there, we don't actually know. We can't dictate that. That is a process that we will have to take it through to the next step. I think that's where we are.
I think I'd like to see more detail that we can take out to the community so we can get feedback, and I know Billy has stated that he wants to move this forward as quickly as possible, and has pushed for this. So if we can get some of that kind of stuff, we can get out to the community, that we can get some feedback on, and then we have something that we can really discuss about writing letters of support once we have feedback from neighbors and the community itself.
Can we open this up to other people who may have questions about kind of what they've heard so far and kind of, how this is going to come to fruition, where we are, 3 individual properties, maybe probably blocked together, sold or developed as one large unit. What are some of your questions, the folks who are on the call?
No questions.
Oh, there's questions.
Yeah, there's got to be questions.
Well, I'll get with Billy and so we can discuss and further develop the concept. So we could present it to the community for sure. So yeah, that's what I'm here for tonight, is to kind of take notes and see how we move this thing forward further. And I know the questions have been asked before. What's Billy really gonna do here? Is he gonna do it? Well, I know that he has like 100-unit apartment building near Sloan's Lake that will be under construction very quickly. So that would be,
combine these 3 properties. That is kind of like more like a 300 unit, right?
right.
Yeah, I mean, and at 8 stories, it is actually quite big. Jonathan,
Right. This is a 8-story project, the 100-unit. So
oh, okay, good to know.
yeah. So Billy's learning how to build these larger projects for sure, and I know that his intent is to develop this, but I will meet with him and then we'll come up with a strategy.
Jonathan's got a question.
Sorry, I was typing, Troopy.
Sorry, no, Jonathan, go ahead.
When Mr. Wang goes to the city to rezone this sort of sliver between his small property between the 2 larger properties, what does he have to bring to the city then? Does he have to bring them? I just don't remember. Does he have to bring them like detailed drawings, or does he?
No,
just
so
say, I want to go bigger?
Tricky and I just went through this earlier because I have done this is what's called a zone map amendment. It's commonly referred to as zoning change, but really what it is, it's changing the zoning map, and it's a significant process even for a small residential property. And I just completed one this year. He does not need a letter of support from our neighborhood organization. Or drawings that show what he's planning on doing. That is not part of the official application process. But it helps to have drawings about for them to give you approval. They kind of want to see what you are doing. And in my case, I submitted some drawings of the proposed residential change that we did and why the property didn't meet the qualifications that it needed to. So no, they don't need all of that sort of stuff. But what I've discussed with some of the other committee members was, without that stuff, it's hard for us as a community to make a decision about whether this is something that's good or not good for the neighborhood, or that they agree with or don't agree with. And that's where the graphics and the program requirements and all of that come in real handy. It's not officially needed for the process. But it does, I will tell you from experience that having some of that in there does help smooth the rest of the application process. Now, what he will need is letters of notification to adjoining property owners eventually in that process. That's not required early on. And then there will be the postings on the property at intervals during that application process, where you have to have the signs up there, a month before the hearing. It'll go through the planning, and all of the different departments will go through and review it. And then it'll eventually get to city council. And then of course the mayor will vote on it. But no, they don't need specific design plans to go through the application process.
And that's kind of the disconnect here, because that SDP process, site development review or whatever, it happens further down the road, and rezoning happens first. But when we think about the rezoning and trying to get community support, the community is like, we need more than the fact that you want to build 8 stories to be like signing off. They have maybe more questions, more detail. So I think that is the disconnect between the way the process works and where we are in the middle of that. However, one of the other things, and so Anjan, besides the fact that I think the next step really for what you're looking for is really to make sure that we socialize this and share this with the community. In order to do that, there has to be a little bit more tangible stuff, a vision, a bigger vision. And again, I think you guys really need to think about the fact that no one, once it moves forward, is going to look at this one property by itself. You're really going to have a much bigger project that is those 3 lots that are going to get combined. If for the most part, I think that's how it's going to go. And you may sell it that way, but the community needs something more to react to other than, we want 8 stories. Are you in? Are you out? Right? So how can we do that? How can we support you, to move that through this conversation and vision? So you guys need to develop a vision. You need to articulate that to the community. You guys need to be part of the outreach, right? That is making sure that everybody who's potentially impacted by 8 stories in that place, which is a conversation we can have later, but we think it's going to be somewhere from Inca to La Pan, 46 to 38th. Outreach to that group that says, this is what we're doing. Here's where we're going to discuss it. Here are the renderings. Here's the link. Come to this meeting and, provide your input. Then our body can look at all of that input and say, do we feel that the community is for this or not for this based on what we get back, right? Because this isn't this 5 people or 10 people, whoever shows up. It is about everyone who's actually impacted. So the process for us includes this community engagement that you guys need to be a part of the outreach for we will provide the platform to make sure we can all get together and everybody can share their input and that their input or questions are addressed. That's our role. And then, based on what we hear and see and, and you may need to work with individual, property owners even, right? Because that kind of happens too. You're like, hey, does a fence needs to go up here or this needs to happen to, make this thing work? Then we kind of move forward to the step of an actual approval. I think we're really in the beginning of it. And I think we need a few more
Well,
steps.
and I really want to reiterate that idea of disconnect that you sort of mentioned there, Trupti. It is a disconnect, and it's something that I kind of struggle with. The process going through the city is very technical. They have check boxes they look at. It's a very technical process. Like, for example, the question is going to be, does the current zoning of the property not conform to the surrounding neighborhood any longer? Or was it zoned incorrectly to begin with? Those are the questions they ask you, and they can simply check a box when they go through some of that criteria. And when they go through all of the infrastructure and all of those, there are boxes that have to get checked. The problem with our process here as a neighborhood organization, it's not as technical, it's more personal. It's emotional. It's those type of things. And so I think the presentation that would have to come before here so that we could communicate adequately to the community would have to have both of those things, including, visions of what the entire project would be that respond to the community in an emotional way and how it's really going to impact them. And, quite frankly, those aren't requirements for the city, but if you're coming to a neighborhood organization, unfortunately, that's the type of information that they're going to require, less of the checkboxy type of things. Because they don't have the expertise to answer those questions.
Yeah, here's a for instance, and I know we're over, so
we're about 8 minutes over.
But
so
like someone on the call said, I would like to see the above required affordable housing. That one's actually an easier one to answer, and neighborhood amenities like a grocery store for neighborhood recommendation. So I think people are going to have very specific things. When you bring in 300 units, how do you service those 300 units? How are you part of the solution for servicing those 300 units, as well as every other development there? How are they going to be part of the solution for those? How are we going to make that work? That is what the community is interested in, right? While your rezone makes sense, it's the way it's going to go based on everything we're seeing. But to get the community support, they're, to Rod's point, they have a perspective that's a little bit more personal, a little bit more tangible. I'm walking down the street, I'm passing this stuff. How does this serve me? How does this make my life better? How do I interact with this new development? That's the kind of stuff that you need to articulate to us and the community in order to get the support. And we don't get that right now.
Yeah, and it's tough. With those, bringing a rendering of an adjacent property with a different development on it, I don't think gets to the crux of what the real big picture for all three of these properties are. And I'd like to see a little more refinement from that. And I think when I say I've had conversations with a lot of different people in the committee and in the neighborhood, and I think that's kind of what we're looking for. So if you could articulate that to Billy, and Trupti's always available. I'm always available. I did post my email in the chat. If you would like to email me directly, I'm happy to talk about like what I would see, and we could take it to the committee and those sort of things as well. And really try to figure out how we can bring this out to the neighborhood and the community, because I think that's what we're going to be looking for, is their support, not just the few members that come on here, like Trupti said, once a month. I'll repost it in the chat again, and you can copy it.
And I'm going to apologize to Melissa. Melissa, you're usually on the city council updates, and we did not.
Oh,
we kind of skipped that, but I'm going to blame Rod.
Yeah, blame me. I'm sorry.
Blame Rod. So is there anything that we didn't cover that is kind of important and you wanted to articulate, at least include in our the recording so people hear it?
No, I'll drop a link to our update into the chat. And then the other thing is I do want to clarify when you were talking about what's due about 44th. Changing MS as a whole for the whole city is not really an option.
Yeah, I was wondering
that's
about
what I
that. I
figured,
just kind of like this, I didn't really feel like this was the discussion to have in this committee meeting either. It was just like, this is just like, hey, we're going to do this and then talk about it.
That sounded like a 10-year process to me, you know?
Yeah.
And that's
Talk
why
about stakeholders. That would be
Oh,
tremendous.
yeah.
the overlap
So-
made sense.
I know you're looking for quick and easy. That is not going to be your way.
No, changing the zoning code. Yeah, there's a lot of, my personal opinion is the reason we're seeing a lot of these CO and DO overlays going on in a lot of neighborhoods is, you know, people are realizing that we're not getting the type of development that we want to see in our neighborhoods, depending on which neighborhood and area of the neighborhood it is.
Unintended
And-
consequences.
Well, I
other
mean, no
decisions.
zoning code is perfect, and we're just seeing that, you know, there are ways to sort of nudge it without having to, like, you know, tear it down and start over from scratch. And I think these seem to be the easier pathways to doing that rather than trying to rewrite the zoning code. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
so
just
let's
not, there's no energy for doing that. With
Melissa, are there
anybody.
any other city council announcements and updates you need to make to get on?
No, that's pretty much it. You know, the big thing is just for people to submit those letters of support or your comments on the Sunnyside overlay. And then keep in mind the last final public hearing that we'll have at the end of February. That's in there as well. Sign up won't be until the day of. If you want to do public comment, it will be on Zoom, although you're welcome to come down and hang out in the sitting council chambers if you are so inclined.
Sounds fun.
Rod, are you going to come on down this time?
I don't know. I did. I have to tell you, the planning board meeting, I had a lot of fun, and it was good seeing everybody in person again. I got to admit.
Fun.
Yeah.
We will-
Well, it was just in person part was like.
We will
enjoyable.
share
Like,
all of this stuff in our February newsletter that goes out ahead in early February. So we will make sure that the ways to contribute towards or, you know, support, that's going to be included. And of course, we're always sharing, you know, what you guys are sharing on your social media or what we get via email. So absolutely, we'll do that. And apologies for not including you in the update section. Rod, update section always.
It has,
City
you know,
council update.
somehow that got scrubbed out. I apologize profusely.
Hey,
That's
thank you,
okay,
everyone.
it's fine. I realize you guys are getting this together, so it's fine.
I'm working on it. I'm
Thanks,
getting there.
everyone.
You guys did a
And
great job.
Anshin, I want to thank you, Anshin, for coming and speaking tonight. I appreciate it. And Melissa, thank you. And everybody else that showed up. Thanks very much. And I think that's past our time by far. So we will adjourn the meeting. We'll
I'll
see you
post
next
this
month.
recording in the next couple of days. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.